All right, guys. So, apparently the penguin is actually woke. I would just like to personally apologize for improperly reporting on the show. Like, I just talked about how it's a really good show with good writing, performances, just really strong dialogue. I was, uh, giving it credit for feeling like it's a part of the Matt Reeves the Batman world. I was giving it credit for the performances and whatnot. Like, but I would like to apologize because I improperly covered the show because apparently it's woke. Apparently it is tainted by the woke mind virus. So, I just want to get educated, and I want to stop improperly covering media. So let's get into this.
So after looking around in the comics community and after making a few controversial videos on this channel, I've come across a harsh reality. There are still real comic book fans out there, as seen with the support I've received from these people who have actually read comic books. But then on the other side, there's a horde of people who aren't real comic book fans, yet act like the exact opposite. This video isn't just going to be me complaining and whining, because there is still fans out there that are willing to fight. So I'm just trying to make you aware of this massive
Bro, like, when something, like, at a certain point, you just have to go, oh, other people disagree with me and have a different opinion than me. Okay, moving on with my life. Like, what is this whole thing of, like, we have to fight? We have to fight back against people saying that they like comic books, but maybe not reading as many comic books as me. This is a battle that I must engage in. Like, what? What are we even talking about, bro?
issue that we have. There's many examples in recent years of this in full force. One of the biggest examples for me is the Matt Reeves Batman universe. Ooh. Yes, this universe is darker, and yes, it does have Batman as a proper detective, but that only seems so good because we've been starved of a real Batman movie for so long. The best Batman movie ever made is The Mask of the Phantasm. Mask of the Phantasm is an objectively better Batman movie and adaptation. It's a gritty Art Deco noir Batman tragedy. No race swap.
Sorry, we'll get to that in a second. Well, yeah, but when people talk about Batman movies, they're talking about, like, live action adaptations. Like, I mean, let's be real. It's unfortunate, but when people talk about Batman movies, they're not bringing up Mask of the Phantasm because people have, like, an anti-animation bias, and it is what it is, but you can be like the guy that's like, well, actually, Mask of the Phantasm is the best Batman movie, but, most, like, normal people that are having these conversations are just going to be like, what? What are you talking about? The hell did you say to me? And I don't think he's wrong, but that's just kind of like the unfortunate reality of the situation.
No, and
although to be fair, it's been a minute since I've seen Mask of the Phantasm. Like, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I don't even know if it actually holds up as well as he's purporting it to do so. Although I'm sure it does. I mean, it's animated series, so probably.
Anti-white racism and no character assassination.
Do you have to bleep racism on YouTube? Is that a thing? Am I gonna get demonetized on my non-monetized channel? Okay, I will. No, my main channel is monetized, kind of. Like, you can become a member on my main channel. This channel is not monetized at all, so I don't even care at this point.
All anyone cares about in this place are these white privileged assholes.
I mean, so this is my whole thing on that scene in specific. I do agree that there is an annoying amount of, like, anti-white racism that's just kind of normalized today, especially on social media. Although, to be fair, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, it normalized regular racism too. So, I mean, But I would say before Elon Musk buying Twitter and normalizing all racism, which I don't necessarily think is the best thing in the world, um, I would agree that there was like this weird like like thing where it's like you were just kind of allowed to be racist to white people. Like there'd be times where like I would see like I don't know, like some Karen freaking out and like a video of a Karen freaking out at a Walmart. And it would be like, "Oh, that's funny. Yeah, some crazy lady freaking out asking to see the manager for no good reason. That's funny. Let's all mock the lady." And then you'll like go into the comments and it'll be like, "The whites are at it again." And it's like, "Oh, that's why are like what like why am I seeing this?" And it was just a thing that was normalized on Twitter. Like I said before, now you go on Twitter and you're just seeing all kinds of racism, which I don't necessarily think is a positive direction to go in. I don't know. That's kind of weird. Um, with all that being said, though, so when we look at that scene in the Batman, I don't necessarily have a problem with it because it's not like a broad derogatory like it's not like something about white people inherently. It's a comment about wealthy people and how they tend to be white and how privileged they are in society, like financially speaking. And, and like it's also not only that, but it's a line that makes sense for Catwoman specifically in this specific context to say. So even though like if Catwoman was like a real person, right? I would be like, "Hey, that's like maybe like the racial tone there is maybe not the best thing to say." Like I would maybe have that conversation with somebody in real life, but it's also just like a different situation when we're looking at does that line make sense for a character in a movie to say? And so that's also just like a different lens at looking at it. So I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I can understand where like this guy's like anger is coming from, right? Because he's like, well, social media and media thinks that it's okay to be racist towards white people, and this makes me feel some type of way. And people will mock this guy, right, and say like, "Oh, well, white people are the best. They've had so much privilege throughout society, so you just have to take it. All right, so shut up. Nobody cares, whitey." And I think that type of attitude is actually very negative, and I think it probably leads to kids like this to be radicalized. Um, so it's like I feel like I understand everything that's going on here. However, yeah, like when I look at that line in the Batman, specifically in the context of that movie, I don't necessarily have as much of a problem with it. I don't think it's the same as like the genuine normalized anti-white racism that has been a thing for like the past several years. I think it's a line that makes sense in the context of the Batman, where it is a movie about the haves and the have-nots. It is just like an acknowledgement that rich white people have like the most, they benefit the most from society. Catwoman is a cat burglar who steals from rich people and has her own like methodology and her own like moral system, right, that she operates within. And I'm sure she is also black, right, and she probably feels like some type of way about that, but it makes sense for her character. Like like that's the other thing, right? Like you don't have to like agree with every single thing that a character does. You know, like that's also like this other weird thing where like people will see a character in a movie do a thing that they may or may not agree with, and then they'll like take that thing and like hardcore morally like chastise the creator, even though it might not be like the creator's like exact philosophy or exact moral thing, because they're just having the character do the thing that makes sense for the character to do. Does any of that make sense? I don't know. But at the end of the day, though, like it's like when I see reactions like this, I feel like I do get where it's coming from, because the reality is that there has been a weird like excuse and just green light for people to be racist against white people, and I don't think that that's okay. And I think that it leads, like, this man here is like the consequences of that.
Racism and no character assassination.
All anyone cares about in this place are these white privileged assholes.
You're probably wondering, what does he mean by character assassination? In the Batman 2022, we aren't actually watching a Batman movie. Who actually is this guy? An emo weak male who doesn't act like Bruce Wayne or Batman. In the film,
This is like, I just like so fundamentally disagree with this perspective. What I love this about the Batman is that it's the first Batman movie to actually be about Batman, right? To like just straight up tell you Batman is who the character is. He is Batman. In another movie, he's going to create the Bruce Wayne persona in order to better hide his identity, right? And use the Bruce Wayne persona whenever he needs to use it. But as of right now, at this point in time, he is just Batman. Because in other Batman movies, it's like, or well, I should say, like that's at least how I've always interpreted the character, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of the comic books, right? I'm not, I've mostly just like watched episodes of the animated series, and I've played the Arkham games. So that's how I've always looked at it, where like Batman is who the character is, and Bruce Wayne is like a persona that he puts on. And it's like when you look at a lot of the other when you look at like a lot of the other live action movies, it's like especially like the Christopher Nolan movies were just weird, where it was like Batman was his own character, and then like he felt different from Bruce Wayne hanging out with Alfred, which felt different from Bruce Wayne, the Bruce Wayne persona that he had when he would like go on the yacht or whatever. And it was just like the Nolan Batman had almost like 3 different identities. It was like weird. But like the Batman, I feel like was the first time where they were like, Batman is who the character is. Which I thought was fantastic. And I think it establishes that, and then is going and lays the groundwork for future movies to further develop that.
he literally listens to Nirvana. He doesn't look anything like the character inside the suit or outside of it. Then you have all type of people adoring this film, even comic book fans. All Matt Reeves did was rip off Seven and The Crow and made an inferior version of them. It isn't comic accurate. It isn't bad.
I mean, this is also like let's just say that it isn't comic accurate. It's like, first of all, yeah, like most people are going to be like, yeah, but it's just a good movie. I mean, that is, at the end of the day, like this is a thing that comic book fans need to just understand. Most people don't care about comic accuracy. Like, apparently Iron Man in the MCU isn't accurate to Iron Man in the comic books. Most people don't know that or care. They just like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. So that's the first thing that you have to contend with, right? Most people don't care. They just want a good movie. The Batman, it's like, but it captures like the essence of what people like out of Batman. At least for me, he is right in the sense that I'm not like a comic book fan. So maybe there are like most iterations of Batman are fundamentally not the way that I view him, where like Batman is the is who the character is, and Bruce Wayne is the mask. Like, that's how I've always viewed Batman based on the iterations that I've seen him in. Maybe most comic books aren't like that, but that's like what I appreciate the most out of Matt Reeves' take, and why I love it as much as I do. But then I feel like at that point you're like running into the whole thing of like, there are probably like so many iterations of Batman in the comic books. Like, part of me definitely does wonder if this guy is sitting there being like, well, I have my particular run of comics that I personally enjoy, and this Batman isn't like the one that I personally like, so I'm going to get mad at other people for liking this version of Batman. Like, it's just like, it's also just, at the end of the day, it's also just like such a weird thing to like obsess about. Where it's like, you like a thing that I personally don't like, and you're wrong. And why? Well, because this is a version of a character that has so many different iterations of it. It doesn't match up with my particular version that I personally like. And it's just, like, at this point, it's just like, dude, I don't know. I don't know if this is something worth getting this upset over. And yeah, and also, again, like, when it comes to the Matt Reeves Batman, it's also like, it is Matt Reeves' own unique take on it, with him being a little more emo, but at the same time, it is capturing the essence of Batman, right? Which is what I've described. Like, I don't think anybody's looking at the Robert Pattinson Batman and literally going like, wow, this is exactly like the comic books. Because it's not. It is grounded. It is gritty. It is realistic. Robert Pattinson does have his own unique take on it, but it feels right, which I think is what most people say.
Batman, and if you're defending it, you need to go and read a real Batman comic. Then another example.
I mean, I actually don't have to do that, to be clear. Like, I can just like a thing. People are allowed to just like a thing. People are allowed to like have iterations of Batman that they liked as a kid, and then watching a live action adaptation and going like, hey, that is kind of that has things that I liked from what I liked as a kid. I don't have to watch your specific iterations. I don't have to read the exact comic books that you like. Like, that nobody actually has to do that, to be clear.
But with the brand new Penguin TV show that I was actually excited to watch. Every single person on the internet right now is hyping it up to be some sort of masterpiece. But me, I was out as soon as I heard just one thing about it. I heard that in the show, The Penguin, we weren't actually going to be getting the Penguin. So you have the character from the Batman universe, the Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot. You have to change his name down to Oz Cobb because you're so ashamed of what you're adapting. You're making a universe.
This is actually like a really dumb point. The main reason why they changed it, at least I would assume, is because I think in the comic books, right, Oswald Cobblepot is like, he comes from like a wealthy family lineage, much like the Waynes. In the Batman universe, they changed that, right? Oz comes from nothing. He comes from a poor family. So Oz Cobb is a more appropriate name for like some nothing poor family. Like, it would actually be weird if it was Oswald Cobblepot. Now, I guess you can get mad that they changed that they just changed the origin story in general, but within the universe, it actually does make sense. And when I'm watching it, I'm not getting the feeling that they're ashamed of being a comic book show. Like, the funny thing about the Penguin and the Batman universe in general is that, like, yes, they are grounded and realistic, but there are also like many elements of comic bookiness that make me push back against the idea that they're like super ashamed of being a comic book. Like, the drugs in the Penguin are very comic booky, right? They're drops, and they're like dropping them in their eyes. It's like there are like elements like that make it feel heightened, in a way that I don't necessarily agree that they're like so ashamed of being a comic book thing, right? Like in the Batman, you have like the contact lenses that allow Bruce to like, see things and record stuff, and they feel kind of futuristic. So I don't know, like I actually would push back against the idea that Matt Reeves and his universe is like ashamed to be comic booky.
Verse based off of a comic, and you don't even have the respect to use the characters' actual names. Same with Batman in this universe. He's not even called Batman. He's called Vengeance. Who are you? I'm Vengeance. Do you want to go on and finish the line? It's I am Vengeance, I'm the Knight, I am Batman. You can't just cut out the...
Dude, this is so pathetic. What? I First of all, do they not call him Batman in the movie? Isn't there like a point in the I'm pretty sure there's a point in the movie where doesn't somebody say like it's the bat and the cat when referring to Batman and Catwoman? Am I wrong about that? But even still, it's like to get upset that they're using the name Vengeance and not using like the full on line from like the Dark Knight Returns or whatever. Guys, or dude, what are you even what is going on in your life that this is something that you're upset about? Like, this is such an unhinged, unreasonable thing to be mad about. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know.
the part that you don't like, then it is...
It's not that Matt Reeves doesn't like it. It's that it's just like not... He's just using Vengeance as like a name, as like one of those like first names that they use to refer to a character as before it develops into like the actual superhero name. I mean, that's just like a thing in comic book media. But it also just like, it's also like a quick little thing that relates to the theme of the movie, right? That Batman initially is about vengeance, and then by the end of it, like Batman is a thing that represents vengeance, and it's a thing that inspires the Riddler and the Riddler acolytes. And when the guy like at the end says that he's called Vengeance, and then Batman realizes that, oh no, I messed up, I've inspired these people. So then at the end of it, he becomes a symbol of hope instead of vengeance. Like, it's just like not, it's just like used differently. It's not, there's nothing about him that hates this specific line. It's not about that.
I'm the Knight, I am Batman. You can't just cut out the part that you don't like. Then it isn't the character. And the problem...
It's a different context. It's not about hating the character.
The problem isn't that the comic books are too goofy and a modern audience wouldn't be able to grasp it, because comic writers for years could do exactly this. They could come in and take a character that was once goofy and make them realistic and grounded. It's not that hard. You're just being lazy. Take one of the best comic books ever made, Daredevil, the Man Without Fear, the ultimate origin for the character. Frank Miller managed to explain the name Daredevil without changing his name. Matt Murdock grew up as a rough kid on the streets of Hell's Kitchen, and everybody called him a daredevil. There you go. There's your explanation. Then he takes that name in the future to fight crime with. It all depends.
Well, that's actually kind of a dumb origin, because you're supposed to have a moniker that hides your identity. Like, you probably shouldn't use a moniker that in some way relates to your actual real identity. Now, again, does it matter at the end of the day? No. But if we're like autistically nitpicking things like this guy is, I'm just saying.
On how good of a writer you are, and Frank Miller is one of the best. You shouldn't even be allowed to name your film The Batman or your show The Penguin when you're not staying true to those characters. And once again,
but isn't it just like kind of funny that like he's he's just like specifically picking just the versions of the comics books that he likes, like the very specific ones that he likes, when it's like the reality is that we're dealing with characters that are just like, there's so many different versions of these characters. Like, even if we wanted to say that, like, oh, Matt Reeves hates Batman and he hates comic books and oh, he hates everything, it's like, don't we have enough versions of these characters? Is it maybe not okay to like let some guy just kind of do his own thing? Is that not fine? Is that not like an okay thing to do? Like, I don't know. I think we have enough versions of Batman at this point, and we just want to let somebody go crazy and wacky with it. But at the end of the day, like, I just kind of like disagree that Matt Reeves even is doing any of that. This is just bizarre.
Another massive example of this is the Fox X-Men movies. I grew up my entire life not liking the X-Men because all I ever saw was those movies. Cyclops was a douchebag, Rogue was some annoying kid, and Wolverine didn't even look cool. And you want to know why that was? Why those films aren't good? Because Bryan Singer, the director, banned comic books off of the set of those films. He didn't.
Yeah, well, that's like an actual example of this. But like, I don't think that Matt Reeves ever did that. Like, that actually is like like, there's that line in it where he's like, "Why do you expect us to wear yellow spandex or whatever?" Like, the Fox X-Men movies or the Bryan Singer X-Men movies actually are an example of the director explicitly not really liking comic books. Because he also directed Superman Returns, which kind of which I think if I remember, I think it was like Bryan Singer trying to like make his own like intellectual version of Superman. I might be wrong about that. Never mind. I haven't seen Superman Returns since I was a child, so I shouldn't speak too much on it. But yeah, like his X-Men movies actually are examples of him straight up like not wanting to necessarily be like the comic books. But I just don't think that the Matt Reeves Batman movie is the same situation, nor is the Penguin.
Didn't want people reading the comics that the characters were actually from. This mentality absolutely disgusts me. These characters are from comic books. Read some of them, then adapt it. Don't race swap and don't name change. Like the film Sin City, it worked perfectly. Why? Because you adapted it and you didn't go in changing everything. And to the people who call themselves comic book fans, stop tolerating this crap. That's why I have a
people can like what they want to like. Like, you can like the comic books, but also just like a show because it's good, even if it's not the same. Like, why do you feel the need to tell people to not like a thing that they like? Why do people liking something bother? Like, why does that bother you? Like, it feels like there's just like other things going on in your life that is leading to this mentality where you see people enjoying a thing and it like actually makes you upset. It's not okay, brother. It's not okay. It's not a good mentality to have.
Problem with these comic book fans. They won't actually step in and say no. When a beloved character that's been around for like 30 years gets name changed or race swapped or gender.
Yeah, no, it's just like, who cares? like race isn't an important part about Jim Gordon's character. So if they want to get Jeffrey Wright in there, cool. How many times has fucking Catwoman been race swapped? She was like race swapped in the 60s and race swapped back in the Tim Burton movies, and then I think still kept white in the Nolan movies, and then she was race swapped back in the Batman. Like, just, who cares? Race isn't an important part of Catwoman. I mean, I guess it was, yeah, with that one line that we were talking about earlier, it makes sense for her to be black in that case. So, it's just not that big of a deal. Like, most people just don't care.
Gender swapped. Stand up and say no. Another problem that I have is the use of the phrase in the comics. For example, ask anybody about the character Moon Knight. These comic book fans will tell you that in the comics, Moon Knight is a psychopath. And they'll say that Moon Knight has always been a proudly Jewish character. When in reality, when you read the first comics and the definitive run of the character, Doug Mensch's Moon Knight, none of this is true. All of this garbage came when Doug Mensch stopped writing the character and some random dude called Alan Zelentz comes in and makes the character Jewish. Now say what you want about religions and politics, but I don't think that you should just be able to step in after the main writer of a character is done and just start changing things. Same with him.
I think it's fine to do that, actually. I think it's fine to, like, take things and make your own versions of them. I don't care. I just don't care. Like, I just fundamentally feel like artists should be able to take things and create their own versions of them. It's just, I don't know. I don't like being Art Hitler, where I'm like, it has to be the same. It has to be the same. Everything has to be the same forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And you can't ever do anything fun or interesting with IP. I just don't care. Just make something that you feel passionate about, and that where the end result is a good piece of art that I could enjoy. That's all I really care about, bro.
Him being a psychopath. In the original comics, Moon Knight isn't some sick freak going around cutting people up. He'd never do that. If any of this happened with any other character, it would be totally stupid and the fans would have to call it out. Imagine if when Stan Lee stopped writing Spider-Man, some random dude came in and made Spider-Man a psychopath. It would be
based? Yeah, sure, why not? I don't care. I don't care. I don't know.
nonsense. It would get laughed out of the room. No, the character was already well established. You can't just
like, isn't there's a thing called the Batman Who Laughs, where isn't that a version of like the Batman where he like turns into the Joker or something? like, yeah, they do this stuff all the time. Nobody cares.
come in and make them a psychopath or change their religion or change their race. It doesn't make sense. And if you're a comic book fan, start calling it out. You have to realize that just because something happened in one comic doesn't mean it's true to the comics. Like, if I'm remembering correctly, Alfred once in a comic headbutted Superman. That sounds incredibly stupid, doesn't it? So just because something happened in one comic doesn't make it canon. YouTube
That's just cool. I want to read that comic now.
Comic videos and short form content like TikTok and YouTube Shorts are gaslighting people to believe that these bizarre one-off stories, that's what the comics are. That's what being comic accurate means. When in reality, not one bit of this is true. Stop getting your information about comics from TikToks and these YouTube videos. They're lying to you. If you want information about comic books, just
Subscribe
go read
to
the comics
me.
yourselves. Go before the year 2000 and you should be good on almost every character. So if
Yeah, this is like so funny. He's like, read the comics that I like, not the other comics. Like, it's like, at this point in time, this is what this guy's doing, right? He's basically going, Snow White is inaccurate. This like new iteration of Snow White is inaccurate. Also, the Disney Snow White is inaccurate. Also, this other version of Snow White is inaccurate. The only Snow White that should exist is the one from, like, the original fairy tale. That's the only one. And it's just like, bro, like, people are gonna make their own versions of Snow White. Like, it's a fairy tale. It's been around for many years. Nobody cares about being accurate to, like, whatever the original fairy tale was. Like, this is literally what he's doing. He's, like, getting mad at all the Disney fairy tale movies because they make changes from, like, the original writing. This is basically what this is. He's looking at these characters that have been around for a long time and have had, like, many artists come in and tell their own stories with, because that's just how these things work. and he's just upset for no real good reason. He's just like mad because people are like doing art and telling stories and aren't worried about being faithful to like the literal first iteration of the thing.
If you enjoy any of this stuff, or you like the Penguin or the Batman, good on you. But for the love of
Cool. Okay.
God, please don't call it comic book accurate. And if we're being
But like, you can call it comic book accurate to the comics that you read and that you liked. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to say like, hey, this is comic book accurate because it captures the essence of what I feel like the character is from the things that I've read. Like, I don't think that anybody is saying that it, like, when people say comic book accurate for the Batman, it's obviously more grounded in realism than the comic books are. I don't think that people are like pretending that that's not the case. Just to be clear.
being truly honest, it shouldn't even have the name the Penguin or the Batman, because that's not what they're adapting. And lastly, just a small tip to get the truth and the proper information about comic books. Stop listening to fake comic book fans that are more interested about how many body parts they can mutilate on their own body, and start reading the proper comics from the 70s and 80s. Then make your own opinion.
Wait, what? Is he like attacking like trans podcasters? Where did that come from? Bro, dude, you have issues. Listen, I have no interest. Okay, listen, I have no interest in like bullying this man. Okay? If you're watching this, do not go to his channel and make fun of him. This is like an angry person. This is a disturbed person. So, we're just here having a conversation. You know what I mean?
So if you agreed, let me know. And if you disagreed, go complain to your boyfriend.
Ooh, 'cause you're gay. You're a homosexual. Yeah, like, listen, at the end of the day, people are going to like what they like. People are going to relate it to whatever comics they read, because there are literally so many comic books that exist. Like, somebody that reads different comics than you read, their perspective is just as valid as yours. When you talk about what Batman is, there are so many different iterations of Batman at this point that people are going to have their feelings about what the character is based on whatever version of it they grew up with. I mean, that just is what it is. That doesn't make their perspective on what Batman is more or less valid than yours. I will say, I'm a little upset at this because the thumbnail said that the Penguin was woke. He never explained how the Penguin itself was woke. He only explained how the Batman was woke. Because when it came to the Penguin, I don't think there were any race swaps. Because we got, as far as like the new characters that were introduced, we got the Sophia Falcone. No race swaps there. If anything, isn't the Penguin less woke than the comics? Because isn't like Sophia like a really tall, muscular lady in The Long Halloween? Am I wrong about that? I feel like I might be completely making that up because I've never actually read that comic. So if anything, he can't even make the argument that the Penguin is woke. So I feel deceived. Okay, I feel deceived. I feel like I've been played. I feel like he tricked me. So I'll give him props for that at least. But yeah, seriously, this guy seems like a bit of a special individual. So don't go to his channel. Don't be mean to him. Don't do anything. We're just here having conversations about comic books. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.